Hello friends, today I'm here with my January wrap-up. So I decided the way that I would do this wrap-up video is just to kind of remind you what I said I would read and then telling you if I did or didn't or what I read in its place. I'm going to be reading The Wicked and the Divine. Yeah, I started The Wicked and the Divine and the artwork was absolutely gorgeous, but there was something about the story itself that I couldn't get into. Since it was one of the first things I picked up at the beginning of the year, I didn't really want to dedicate too much time to trying to get through that, and I quickly put it aside and moved on. I did read 2 graphic novels this month. First up was Beautiful Darkness by Fabienne Bellman. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The artwork was absolutely beautiful. It had this kind of watercolor feel to it. It went perfectly with the mood of the story, which was fairy tale-esque. At the beginning of this story, we have this bunch of small people who come rushing out of a dead girl's body. They try and set up a new civilization outside of this girl's body. I did not give it 5 out of 5 stars because what holds this whole story together isn't much of a story. There's not a lot of plot going on here. It's just sort of little vignettes almost of things that happen to the different people who were living inside of this dead girl. So it's very symbolic, very metaphorical, and it has a message but not necessarily a story. And the entire thing was just super creepy, especially because it's done in such a light and kind of blasé way. One second you're reading a panel and the next someone is eating someone else alive, and it just kind of happens so quickly. The second graphic novel that I read was Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley. This I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Again, if you've heard me talk at all about graphic novels, you know that my kind of hang up with them is that I enjoy a meatier story. I like things that have plot and progression, and sometimes graphic novels don't have enough of that to really satisfy me as a reader. But Seconds was a longer graphic novel, and I really felt that we got a complete story. I loved Katie, who was the main character. She was sassy and she made some bad choices, but I understood her and her motivations. In the story, Katie finds some magic mushrooms that allow her to do moments of her life over again, and she's only supposed to do it once, but she starts taking advantage and she starts fixing a lot of different things in her life, or supposedly fixing. She has to deal with the consequences of what it means to keep abusing this power. The whole idea of going back in time or fixing one's mistakes isn't new, but I really like the angle that O'Malley took here, looking at if you don't make the mistakes you make, or if you don't live a certain timeline, are you still you? Are you still the same person? And we kind of explore that through Katie, which I really appreciated. Next we have I Was Here by Gail Forman. I did in fact finish I Was Here. I did a little bit of a book review on it, which I will link for you guys. I gave that 3 out of 5 stars, and I'm still feeling very confident in that rating. Next we have A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. I also finished A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, and I gave that 5 out of 5 stars. I think it might alienate some people just because of the way that the story is told in these smaller short stories that are connected by different characters. I personally really enjoyed that. I loved connecting all of the dots. Like I mentioned in my TBR video, I actually went back and I reread a few things. It felt very like I was investigating almost, even though the story was not a mystery of any kind, but it just felt that way to me, to be able to connect how all of the stories were leading and how they all had a common thread. It is not an easy read because of the way that the stories are connected. You have to be paying attention, you have to be very engaged with the story, and also it's not a light read. In general, the mood throughout the short stories was rather dark. I'm confident that even throughout the year of my reading that it will remain one of my favorites of this year. Next we have The Crane Wife by Patrick Ness. We did Crane Wife. We finished Crane Wife by Patrick Ness. I love Patrick Ness. I don't think that this was my favorite story by him, but I think it is worthwhile and I think it has its own merit. Basically, the plot is this man meets this woman who's extraordinary and they create art together and he finds out more about how she's different and whatnot, but there isn't a whole lot of other plot driving action. More Than This might be the best comparison, but even so, I feel like More Than This had a deeper message and was a little more philosophical than The Crane Wife. The Crane Wife's message is very, very apparent, maybe even a little bit too heavy-handed with what it's trying to convey, but I thought it was also beautifully done. Next we have The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. I did finish Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, and I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. In general, it's not a bad story, very entertaining. It had its good and bad bits that basically just leveled out to a 3-star. The writing itself was a little bit repetitive. The main characters, they're a brother and a sister, they have a hard childhood. Their parents are kind of negligent. They're around, but they're not very invested in raising their children. And that point is just told to us so many times that it kind of got to be all right already. And when you have that about something like child abuse, you're doing a disservice to your own story. I would rank this read above I Was Here just because it had more of an air that I enjoy. The first half of the book was very fairy tale like, which I love fairy tales, so that was cool. But even better was that it shifted kind of halfway through the book and became very creepy at the end, and almost not gruesome, but there was an air of darkness that was introduced into the second half of the story. So I really like that there was that visible shift. I will be reading The Liars Club by Mary Carr. I did not actually read The Liars Club. I put a hold on it in the library and I didn't go pick it up, so they ended up charging me like $1. So that was cool. I did read a classic, however. So all of those books I previously mentioned, I read from January 1st to January 16th. After that point, things got really hectic with my school and work schedule, and I kind of went into a reading funk. It was a really weird reading mood. The whole time I was in the middle of 4 or 5 books, and I would make progress in each of them, but I never finished anything because I was reading so many books at the same time. It was very scattered, and it was becoming apparent in my reading. So because of that, I picked up something that I knew that I would enjoy and I would be able to finish, and that was Jane Eyre. I always pick up classics that I love whenever I'm in reading funks because it's just like coming home. It's very comforting. I started reading Jane Eyre when I was about 15 or 16, and I picked it up for the first time for fun. It was at the library, I picked it up, and I absolutely devoured it. This reread just gave me tons of feelings, especially because I've been reading the story for 12, 13 years. Like that idea is kind of mind-boggling for me. But I also really appreciated things I know I skipped as a younger reader. A lot of the descriptions, the dreams and such. I also very much appreciated Jane's character this time around as well. She's so strong, but she's loving, she is quick and sarcastic, she's talented, and she has a lot of great things about her character. So I really connected with that this reread as well. The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I did not read my TBR jar pick, Cress. But I'm almost done. I'm more than halfway done with the book, so I should be done with it in the next couple of days. When I opened Cress, I discovered that I had actually already started it, and I was about 17% through the first part of the book, and so I had a decision to make whether I was going to start from the beginning or just keep going from where I was. I went back to the beginning for all of like 1 page, and it was like, I can't do this because I remember mostly what's going on with Cress and the satellite and whatnot, so I went back to 17% and took off from there. It took me a little while to kind of get into reading from that point though. I think I'm there now. I found my groove. I'm into the story, so I should be able to finish the second half of this book within the next couple of days, and I'm just going to call that a win. It's a cheatery win. I didn't do it in January, but I'm going to call that a win, and I'm going to select a new book from my TBR jar in my February TBR video. So stay tuned for that, which should be coming soon. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I will see you guys later. I ended up reading 7 books this month though, so I am ahead of schedule, even though I did have that little bit of a half a month's worth of a reading funk.